This is the BBC.
This podcast is supported by advertising outside the UK.
BBC Sounds. Music, radio, podcasts.
Thank you for downloading this podcast of The World at One from BBC Radio 4. Hello and welcome to this special edition of The World at One with me, Sarah Montague. On the day Britain goes to the polls and the Prime Minister's fate hangs in the balance, we've hit pause on any political coverage because of laws governing broadcasters. We've chosen instead to look to China. A senior Chinese diplomat in the UK has told us that any decision to exclude Huawei from the 5G network would have substantial repercussions.
What kind of signals do you think this kind of gesture will send out to other investors and other Chinese companies? I think it's going to be quite substantial.
30 years since the Tiananmen massacre, the veteran reporter Kate Adie remembers what it was like to be there.
There were soldiers standing on the lorries and they were firing. And I turned to one man next to me and he was dead.
We'll take an in-depth look at how economic freedoms are balanced by a clampdown on social freedoms.
The Chinese police have been collecting biometric data. They've been making lists of different types of people and then trying to keep tabs on those people.
And in the studio, I'll be joined to chew over all this by a trio of experts. The BBC News is read by Zeb Soanes.
One of China's most senior diplomats in the UK has warned that there would be substantial repercussions for her country's investment in Britain if the telecoms company Huawei was banned from providing equipment for the superfast 5G network here. In an interview for this programme, Chen Wen, who's the chargé d'affaires at the Chinese embassy in London, insists that Beijing would never demand that Huawei provide a backdoor for its intelligence agencies. Here's our technology correspondent, Rory Kethlen-Jones.
This week has seen the Cambridge-based chip designer Arm tell staff to stop working with Huawei and two UK mobile operators drop plans to stock the Chinese firm's 5G phones. Now, China's chargé d'affaires in London has warned of the consequences if the UK government bans Huawei from 5G networks, as the US government has urged it to do. Chen Wen told The World at One they would be substantial. She asked what sort of message a ban would send to other Chinese investors about whether the UK was an open economy. Ms. Chen said there was a bit of hysteria in the United States about the rise of Chinese influence, and the UK should make decisions based on its own national interest.
Theresa May has dropped plans to publish her Brexit withdrawal agreement bill tomorrow after widespread criticism of her latest plans from Conservative MPs and ministers. Downing Street said she was listening to colleagues' concerns about the bill, and the government has announced it now wants to publish the document in the first week of June. From Westminster, our assistant political editor, Norman Smith.
The decision to shelve the publication of Mrs May's Brexit bill until after the parliamentary recess would appear to be the first sign of a wobble in Downing Street over whether Mrs May can survive. The initial response of Number 10 this morning to the mounting criticism was to insist that Mrs May was not giving up on her deal and the bill would be published as planned tomorrow. A few hours later, however, it was announced in the Commons publication would be delayed until June with no date for a vote on the bill. At the same time, the Foreign Secretary, Jeremy Hunt, has met Mrs May this morning to express his concerns about the legislation, and it's thought likely there'll be further meetings with other ministers. Meanwhile, senior Tories have warned unless Mrs May announces she's abandoning her deal when she meets Sir Graham Brady, the chairman of the Backbench 1922 committee, tomorrow, then they will prepare to launch a no-confidence vote in the Prime Minister.
The Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi's party has won a landslide victory in the country's election. The Hindu nationalist BJP party exceeded expectations, winning a second term. The vote was seen by many as a referendum on Mr Modi. From his constituency in the northern Indian city of Varanasi, our correspondent Yogita Lemerye sent this report.
Celebrations are being held at the offices of the BJP party all over India. Supporters have been distributing sweets, bursting firecrackers and beating drums. For Mr Modi, this victory has been a resounding vote of confidence in his leadership. India wins yet again, he wrote on social media. Through the campaign, he projected himself as the strong leader who could protect the country and the man who put India's economy on the fast track. Even though his time in power was marked by a farming crisis, rising unemployment and deepening religious divides, his mass appeal and powerful communication seem to have won over voters. With such a decisive mandate, the new government under Mr. Modi should find it easy to push through its economic and social agenda.
Voting is underway in the elections to the European Parliament. 73 seats are being contested in 9 constituencies in England and 1 each in Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland. Polling stations will close at 10 o'clock tonight. The first results will come in on Sunday night once voting has finished across the EU. The former black cab driver John Warboys has appeared in court in Westminster by video link, charged with 4 offences against women. The 62-year-old, who has changed his name to John Radford, is accused of drugging the women with the intention of carrying out sexual offences. The alleged crimes took place between 2000 and 2008. There will be another hearing at the Old Bailey next month. The author and illustrator Judith Kerr, whose most famous work, The Tiger Who Came to Tea, has been enjoyed by generations of children, has died at the age of 95. She also wrote a series of picture books based on her pet cats, as well as a semi-autobiographical account of her family's experience of fleeing Nazi Germany. Our arts correspondent, David Silito, looks back at her life.
When Judith Kerr made up a story to entertain her daughter about a tiger coming to tea, it was the beginning of a 50-year writing career. The stories of the accident-prone cat Mog came from her son's desire for something more interesting to read. And When Hitler Stole Pink Rabbit was based on her own family's experiences escaping from Nazi Germany. Judith Kerr had trained as an artist, but only began writing children's books in her 40s. She went on to write more than 30 books and was working to the very end. Her final book, The Curse of the School Rabbit, will be published in a few weeks' time. Amongst those paying tribute today, children's writers Michael Rosen and Lauren Childs, who described her as understated but a brilliant artist and very, very funny.
The Oscar-winning actor Geoffrey Rush has been awarded Australia's largest